That's cool.
Here we are at the trailhead. Nathan and Kirk getting ready to take our electric bikes in. We're gonna camp overnight 5 miles beyond the gate. Nathan's busy there packing everything up on his cool trailer. I gotta admit that thing has helped us a lot hauling gear. Here's my rig, my setup. I'm gonna wear that backpack. Got my saddlebags full of gear. It's gonna get down to probably freezing 32, but we're gonna go into a camp where we've had many experiences. I've recorded a couple vocalizations there that we'll be sharing, and we had an encounter in 2015 where a Sasquatch yelled at us for 10 minutes in the middle of the night. Nathan's looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite time of year for stuff to happen.
Yes, April and May seem to be hot at this location.
Yeah, and we're going into, because of an event that happened May 7th of 2015.
That was the event where a Sasquatch yelled at us for 10 minutes and everything went wrong that could go wrong. We did not get it recorded.
To be clear, what happened was the audio recorder died because of the very low temperatures at night, and it died about 35 minutes before the event happened, which happened at 12:37 a.m. But yeah, the recorder we use, my problem was I used really cheap batteries. Now I use exclusively industrial strength, heavy duty alkaline batteries, and I insulate my recorders and I check the battery indicators before I go to sleep. So. All right, so we're on our way in now. We're about halfway into the area that we're gonna go back and cut in off a skid road and camp out where this event had happened back in 2015.
And the gate's closed. We're the only ones in here. We're gonna be 5 miles beyond the gate. We're nobody else in town. We're the only source of entertainment. So we're hoping to get some activity tonight.
Yeah, we're really hoping that being here at the right place, the right time, something might happen. And we're gonna try to stir it up a little bit and see how it goes. Just the two of us, and yeah, something might approach. So with that, we're gonna keep on heading in. All right, so we've made it into camp, and we're set up in this area. Yep, this is it.
Smooth ride. A few trees that were down across the trail we had to move, but this is the spot where all the magic happens.
May magic, as we call it.
And hopefully it bleeds into April a little bit, or a lot of it. It's a beautiful camp. We used to be able to drive in here, but now they decommissioned the road, so we have to hike or ride in.
We have to haul ourselves in here.
And our gear. So it's awesome though. We've been talking about doing this for years, and we're here finally doing it.
E-biking in. We love it. And that's where the fire pit kind of is. It's a beautiful camp here. It looks like fairyland with all the moss and the green. But beautiful, special place. We're gonna get set up and settled in, and then just do a little bit of light exploring and find out what's what. Get some of the cameras and stuff set up and see what happens. We'll check in with you guys in a little bit here.
This is the camp where I was in 2010, August 2010, and the triple moan howl was recorded right here. I was parked right here under this tree, and I had my audio recorder sitting on the hood ready for that night to turn it on once it got dark. And it was an Edirol R09. I grabbed it, turned it on, and meanwhile, while I'm trying to turn the thing on, there are whoops all around us. And I get it turned on, I set it on the hood, and backed off. And so then the audio recorder then recorded the a couple whoops, and then the triple moan howl, and then a couple whoops after the triple moan howl. And you can hear all that in the recording. And the triple moan howl came from that direction, almost straight west. But the whoops were coming from multiple directions around us. So apparently the Sasquatches were in the area, and they hadn't expected us to show up and set up camp here. Exactly what the triple moan howl meant, I don't know, but it's all in the audio recording. All I can say is that's what we recorded. That's classic Sasquatch sounds that many other people have experienced. And at the end of the clip, it cuts off because that was one of the first times I'd ever recorded with this audio recorder. And I took it home, went through the whole file, pulled out the triple moan howl, and then I clipped it. I then deleted the big file. All I had was a little clip. There's probably more around the triple moan howl and the whoops that I did catch, but I was a novice then. I know a little bit more about audio recording now. So, moral of the story is don't throw away the master file whenever you record something significant.
Up right up here. My tent was right in that little gap right there, and Kirk's tent was set up right there behind those ball of ferns. You see right there. Yeah, right in there. And we went to bed at what, about 10:30. The temperature had plummeted down to about, I want to say it was like 28, 29
Yeah,
degrees.
it was below freezing.
Yeah, it got very cold. There was frost on stuff when we got up. All the ferns were all crunchy, and the oxalis
Which
was
is pretty cold
closed
for
up.
May.
Yeah, it was an unusual night for sure. Very, very cold. I actually froze my butt off, but put out the audio recorder just a couple hours prior to us going to bed, probably around 9 o'clock. But as the temperature plummeted, it managed to completely kill my batteries very early in the evening, probably within an hour of the recording. At 12:37 a.m., I was startled awake by a vocalization. And the vocalization, it started with the E sound. It was like a E, and it went on a couple of times, and then whatever it was kept vocalizing and approaching the camp. And we actually, the next morning,
Back there?
yeah, it was back this direction, right through here, back by those stug firs and such over there. There's a vine maple to your left here.
How close
It
did
was
it
much
get?
smaller back then.
The vine maple?
Yeah, it's been 10 years now, which is crazy to think about, almost 10 years. When it came in and it did the first vocalization, it sounded like maybe it was 40 yards down away from the edge of the timber right there. It startled me awake, and I immediately like froze and sat there thinking, what am I hearing? And then I kind of paused for a second, and then it kind of hits me. Okay, that's very similar to other Sasquatch vocalizations I've heard in the past. And it came up. You could hear it walking at one point. Comes up. It paused right before those dug fir, probably. And it did it again. It did the yeah. And then there was a long, awkward pause. And then a type stuff. It was...
Yeah, I liked it when it was making the sounds because then I knew where it was.
Yeah.
The worst part was when it was quiet because then
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was.
You couldn't gauge where it was actually. Yeah, it was weird. It was like, it was still terrifying, but it was less terrifying than not knowing where
Right.
it was.
And I was clutching my 10 millimeter in case it came over to my tent, threatened me. I was ready to defend myself, shooting up so I didn't hit anybody else in camp. But yeah, I was terrified. Nathan was sitting over here like a kid on Christmas morning.
Yeah, it was funny because it's funny now. It was not funny then. It was very intense in the moment. Like my heart rate was just pounding on my chest. I could feel my eyes pulsating. I was sweating in my sleeping bag, and this went on for 10 minutes.
Yep.
At least 10 minutes of solid walking. Boom, boom, boom. Pause. Boom, boom, boom. Like
And then,
a whole bunch of stuff like that.
and then it wore its voice out.
Yeah, by the end of the whole soundtrack, I would say, it started to go hoarse because there were points where it would vacillate between being terribly emotional, like angry, and terribly sad. And when it would get ragey and like very upset, like angry, it would boom its voice. You could feel the sound pass through your body. It was like a vibration. It's like standing in front of a subwoofer pounding bass. You could feel it pass through you. But it basically drove its voice hoarse because there's a couple times where you could hear it. We could hear it breathing a couple times where it would go. And then it would. And then we hear it spit at one point, like literally like hack out on the ground.
I remember that.
And its breathing was super labored at times. And then it probably did this. The breathing part, you could hear it periodically, but it wouldn't do it the whole time. But right after it would do a big, like, exerted vocalization, then it would draw in really heavily, and then it would slow down and get its breath back.
I remember the impression I had was it had an overwhelming feeling of frustration and disappointment.
Yeah, it would go between both of those. Yeah.
You could hear that emotion in its voice, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just making sounds. It seemed like it was yelling a language at us.
Yeah,
Words.
There's no, in my mind, I mean, you understand, I didn't used to think that there was anything to some of the other recordings we've heard that we label samurai chatter. I didn't put a lot of stock in it. I'd heard other things and recorded little things here and there, but I didn't really know what to make of it. But this, when you hear something come up behind your camp, and I'll quote, this is one of the things it actually said. It did, like it did that, and then I did a impersonation of it a moment ago. There's word. It sounds like words, as we would define words.
I remember writing that night. I wrote the account down so I wouldn't forget anything.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wrote down was it was yelling a language that my brain kept trying to figure out, what language is this?
The closest thing I could tell you is imagine Japanese. It's very angry samurai Japanese. Hard O's, wa, e, ah, like a lot of rolling sounds off the back of the throat, and a lot of rises and falls in inflection. It was pretty crazy, and it would say a whole sentence softly and then drop off into hard anger in its voice.
Yep.
And then it would come back out, and and eventually it got sad sounding, really sad, like super bummed out, and it kind of went off the hill there and then dipped off toward the meadow at the bottom. And the other two individuals that were camped down in the valley floor there near the marsh, they did kind of wake up to the sounds that they heard up here, but then they had an audio recorder running down there in the camp that barely picked it up.
Yes.
Barely. I mean, like just on the edge of the white noise, you can tell there was something there.
Right. We tried to amplify it and
just
filter it,
didn't
and it still was just barely discernible.
Yeah.
I think that was John Bronson, and he still has that file.
Yeah. And you could also hear it breaking limbs on its way down as it passes behind their camp and cuts down and drops into the creek. And then it seems to just carry on from there.
Also on John Bronson's audio file, he and Christopher, who was camping with him, they were both snoring.
Yeah,
and
in the tent.
They stepped all over it with their snores.
Very unfortunate. Keeping the audio recorder in the tent was that you just hear them sawing logs the whole time. So, but yeah, and we do have a lot of really unique experiences here since then. Like this area has yielded many encounters, sightings personally of a number of individuals I personally know actually up here have had encounters right here. And the Ahh vocal, or the Ahh-Eee vocal.
Okay, so yeah, in
incident,
2015, it did Ahh.
Yeah, and then in 2020, the animal out toward the road, or came out by the road up there when there was a group camped back here, and then another group had split off to do a road walk, and that was Kirk and Kip. And they were on the road, and they got between something. Something had come in below camp, made a bunch of noise, and then moved around them, I guess, potentially, or another one. And Kirk and Kip kind of got between the thing and the road.
Right, and then that's when it vocalized an Ahh-Eee.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll cover that situation next. And I was here in August 2020 with Kip Morrill. It was about 1 o'clock. We were at another camp north of here, and we decided to come down and check on some friends of ours that were at some camps in this area. And we came in here, parked our car, and got out. And from that moment, everything was recorded with my audio. I had audio with omnidirectional stereo mics that I always clipped to my hat, and then put the audio recorder in my pocket. And so I had that running, and Kip and I got out of his vehicle, and we were going to start walking down there, and I said, oh wait, Kip, we should call in on the radio to let them know that we're coming down the trail, because I knew that they were armed and we didn't want to spook them and get shot. So Kip said, yeah, okay, I'll call in. And so Kip called in the radio, and they didn't respond. He called again, and then he got a response, frantic. It was David, who's in the group. He called back and said, no, stand down, don't come into the camp. We've got crazy activity.
Do you have a radio?
I do.
Okay, then we should probably call them and let them know that we're gonna stumble in.
Okay.
We don't want them to get spooked and shoot us.
Okay.
So,
Hey, folks at Hilltop, Kirk and Kip are walking up the trail. We're at the trucks right now. Did I hear a whistle? Anybody at Hilltop? Copy.
Come again.
Hey, this is Kirk and Kip, and we're at the trucks coming up the trail to Hilltop.
Guys, stand down. We have trees being pushed over literally within 50 yards of the camp.
Okay, copy. We're staying back at the cars.
And so we stood here arguing back and forth. Well, we should go. No, we should stay. Well, we should probably just leave. We don't want to diminish their activity. I said, well, yeah, but if we stayed, we might get something on the outskirts. So we went back and forth a little bit, and then we decided to stay. So then we decided, well, let's take the main logging road and head that direction down to another camp, and maybe we'll have some activity on the side of the road. And about right here, I'm ahead of Kip. Kip's behind me, and Kip says, ooh. I said, what? And I stop, and I turn, did you see something? He says, no, it's just a mouse. I said, oh, okay. And we go up to here, and all of a sudden, right behind the camera, to the west, this vocalization occurred. And it was some type of singing, and then it says, Ahh-Eee, and we'll play that for you. But it was obvious that it was something verbalizing, vocalizing, and then you'll hear me after it's done. I turn to Kip and I say, that was not an owl. And he says, no.
you got something?
It's a mouse.
Oh, okay.
Or a rat or something getting ready to drag
Okay.
across the road. That's cool.
That was not an owl.
So then we stood here listening to see if anything else would happen. And Kip said, well, wasn't that the guys we're going to see in camp? And I said, no, Kip, that was not the guys we're going to see in camp. The guys in camp are over there, and the vocalizer came from over there. And it was dark. Kip couldn't really tell directions. I'm familiar with the area more than Kip was at the time. He said, are you sure it wasn't them? I said, I'm pretty darn sure, Kip. And later we confirmed with them that no, they did not make the vocalization.
And we have a whole bunch of other stories from the same general location, but all over this whole bench of an area. There's a couple of instances where Kirk's had encounters further up towards some of the ravines where something came in and pushed on his vehicle one night. And some other incidents is where someone saw something cross the vehicle or cross in front of a vehicle over the roadway. As well as some very close range whoop incidents even further toward the northeast side of this whole plateau. And that's why we are setting up our thermal and audio in this location and returning here so often. So we're going to get our camp set up now and get a fire going very likely, and just try to be a magnet to anything in the area and get whatever's here to interact. That's our goal. And we'll probably just hang out in camp and maybe walk the road. All right, so we're in our camp and we're all set up. And we got the whole area checked out. We went all the way around and looked around for firewood and stuff, and everything's soaking wet, so probably won't have a fire tonight, but we will be up and trying to instigate stuff and making some noise.
Eating my dinner, baked chicken. To the west, some barred owls are going off.
This is like our tradition. We eat chicken in camp all the time.
You don't need to film me eating.
No, this is great. This is like the best.
The trees here have thick moss on them. It's like a fur, practically.
You made it. I got a little cold last night.
Oh, it was plenty cold.
Did you hear anything?
There were a couple times when I heard something moving around, but it was probably just rodents. Small rodents.
All right.
Big. Did you?
I heard a couple cracks that woke me up here and there.
Oh. Well, reviewing the audio will let us know if something was around.
Yep.
I slept sound. Always take your trash with you.
Yep.
Pack it in, pack it out.
That's the rule. Can't have pretty places if you leave trash everywhere.
Okay.
All right, well, we got our camp all packed up, and we're getting ready to head out. And we got to go service the thermal imagers now that are out in the woods, our trues. And we're going to see how much animal activity we captured. But yeah, pretty quiet last night. Some woodpeckers this morning. Heard some snaps last night off in the timber in that direction, but not much else. So we're gonna get out of here. How much juice do you have left in your bike?
Oh, I'm maxed out still.
I am not, because I am pulling the trailer. I have 3 bars up.